Hi, I'm Kristin, a librarian here at Massanutten Regional Library. For this quarter's craft, we are going to be making some rustic burlap pumpkins, an orange one and a white one. If last fall you got to make our little scarecrows that we did that were also kind of burlappy, these would look great up on the mantelpiece with those. If you didn't get to do them, you should check out that video as well, and then you'll have one extra craft to do. So in your kit this month, you're going to have 2 pieces of burlap. These are about 12 by 16 inches each. You have one white and one orange. You're also going to have 12 pieces of twine that are about 20 inches long. You're going to have 1 piece of thicker twine that's a bit longer than that, maybe 3 feet. You'll have 4 rubber bands, 2 12-inch pieces of HeatnBond, and some Mod Podge, which you know I love, and one of my favorite little foam brushes. If you don't have an iron at home, which you will need to use the HeatnBond, you can also use hot glue, fabric glue, a needle and thread. There's lots of options if you don't have an iron to do that method. At home you will also need a pair of scissors, as always, a pencil or 2 or 3. That's going to help us form our little tendrils. And to prevent yourself making a mess, maybe a little bit of aluminum foil. This is optional, but it'll help keep your pumpkin clean while we're messing with the tendrils. So with that, let's get started. All right, I'm going to start with our orange pumpkin. So as I said, this is a 12-inch by 16-inch piece. You want to put the little piece of HeatnBond that I gave you along one side of the 12-inch, one of the 12-inch sides here. It should be about the right length. Then you're going to fold this over on top of this, and now you have to bear with me. With your imaginary iron, or your real iron at home, you're just going to iron both sides for a few seconds. Make sure you don't touch your iron to the HeatnBond because you'll get yucky stuff on your iron. Just iron both sides until it has a good bond, and then let it cool for a few seconds. Like I said, if you don't have an iron and you don't want to do it this method, and you have a needle and thread, you could do that. Fabric glue would work. Ta-da, magic of television, just actually did this piece with hot glue. So this is what you're going to have, a little bit of sleeve here, and we'll set that aside and get to work on our next step. All right, we're going to take out 6 strands of our thinner twine. Make sure they're roughly the same length. It doesn't matter if they're perfect, but just kind of roughly line them up, and then tie a knot in one end. Very simple knot. I'm sure there's a name for this kind of knot, but I just call it a knot. Scientific terminology. So tie it in a knot at one end. Then you're going to stick it through the sleeve that you made with your fabric. Make sure it's sticking out the top on one end, maybe not too far. Take one of your rubber bands and gather your fabric up around the top of that. I might pull a little bit more just in case. Make sure that knot's sticking out. And then just use your rubber band to secure the end there. I think about 4 should do it. Once you've done that, then you're going to actually turn your sleeve right side out. You didn't realize it was wrong side out, did you? So you should start to see the body of your pumpkin here, ta-da, with 6 strands of twine sticking out the bottom. Okay, now I forgot to mention earlier that you're actually going to have some poly-fil in your kit too, and if you don't have a kit, you're going to need to get some of that to make these pumpkins. You're going to take some of your poly-fil and start to stuff the inside of your pumpkin. This is kind of, the amount is up to you. You should have enough to make 2 nice fat ones, or skinnier ones if you prefer. Just kind of stuff it in there, use your fingers to get it down into the edges there until you get a pretty well stuffed pumpkin. I might do a little more. Something like that, maybe a little bit more. All right, we'll see how that works. All right, we're going to take our second rubber band and secure the top sort of the same way that we did the bottom. If I can get a grip on this fabric here. Like I said, about 4 times should do it. This one, if you can get it a little tighter, that's good, because we're actually going to tie the twine onto it. So if it's a little bit tighter, it gives it a little firmer top there. At this point, you might want to kind of like pull at your top here, because we're going to use this to make a stem. But if you want to get it down so that your pumpkin is a nice round shape, this is a good time to start shaping that pumpkin. I'm not going to tweak it too much because, you don't want to sit here and watch me do this. So once you've got your pumpkin in a shape that's starting to look good, you're going to pull the little bits of twine one at a time up underneath the rubber band. Kind of tuck them over at least under a couple of them at least, so that the rubber band doesn't snap. They're pretty good and sturdy, but just in case. So then you're going to kind of tighten these so that you can see it's starting to form those little segments of the pumpkin, and just tie it around itself there. Nice and tight. So it'll look a little bit like that, and you'll have some hanging off the top, and then you'll just continue that with the other 6, making sure that they're like nice and evenly spaced. Okay, so you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Some of my segments are bigger than the others. Some are smaller. Oops, this one I obviously did not tie tight enough. So, you know, don't rush like I did. But this is a good time now that if you can just want to tweak the sizes of your little segments. And then you should have something that looks like this, hopefully a little better than mine, like I said. Okay, so next we want to work on our stem. I've actually made my stem a little bit short just because I ended up making a slightly taller pumpkin. But you want to trim the top of your stem so that it's like maybe an inch, inch and a half long. So we'll get my trusty, still haven't been sharpened scissors, and just kind of trim off the top a little bit. Get that out of the way. That might still be a little too long for me, so I might trim off a little more here. And then we can always trim some more if we need to. Now I'm going to take my longer piece of thicker twine. If you want to, you can use 2 or 3 pieces of the twine that you have left over to wrap around to make the stem. I just prefer this thicker twine, and my things are a little shorter than I would like. So what you're going to do is take some of your Mod Podge here. Make sure we have that ready. It can be helpful to like stiffen it up a little, I guess. You're going to tie one end of your long piece through that rubber band at the top again. You can just make a simple little knot again. And then you might want to put a little bit of Mod Podge along your twine here to help it stick. Start with that. And then just wrap it around nice and tight here. And you're going to create a stem around this top piece of fabric, if I can get it around. There we go. Well, apparently I find it easier to turn the pumpkin rather than the twine, so there's a tip for you. All right, I think I'm past where I glued, so I'm going to try and glue a little more. It is a miracle if I ever do anything like this without getting Mod Podge over my hands. I'm sure you can find a way to be neater than me, but, you know, it's not a craft if you didn't get a little messy. Now I think that stem is really about long enough, so I'm actually going to trim it a little farther at the top here. But first we want to secure the end of our twine. You can do that by wrapping it back down towards the bottom. And tying it to itself. If you really trust your Mod Podge, then you can just go ahead and glue it off, but I prefer to tie it because I just think it's a little more secure that way. I'm actually going to use one of these other pieces of twine to tie it to. There we go. And then I'm going to also do a little dip of Mod Podge right at the base there where I tied that knot just to harden it up. In the example I made, I actually did Mod Podge all around this twine here just to kind of like stiffen it up, and I thought that worked really well, and it made it feel almost, okay, not really like a real pumpkin stem, but like sort of in the vicinity because it was just a little harder. And then we're going to trim off the excess that we used to make our stem, and like I said, just cut that extra bit off the top, maybe, with my terrible scissors. You'll probably have a little bit of orange showing at the top, but that's okay. If you really want to, you could probably take your twine and do a little curl and cover up the top, but I'm not going to go to all that trouble right now. All right, now we are ready to work on our little curly Q tendrils. I probably could have done this while I was doing the stem as well, but I'm going to take a piece of aluminum foil here and kind of wrap it around the top. Make sure you get your twine up out of the way. Just kind of protect the fabric of the pumpkin while I'm working here. You don't have to do this. Mod Podge dries clear, so it's not going to be a huge deal if you get some on your pumpkin, but you know, just in case you're a perfectionist, let me give you a way to make your things look neater. All right, so we're only going to use, well, you can use as many as you want, honestly. I did 3, you could probably do 2 or 4. I think 6 might be a little bit too many, but you know how pumpkins have those like little curly cues on the top where the leaves fell off? We are going to make some of those. So to do that, you are going to, once again, get your Mod Podge. I'm using a brush for propriety's sake, but honestly I found it easier to like stick my fingers in it and rub my fingers up, but we're not going to do that for the sake of television. We're going to do it the neat way. So just kind of rub some Mod Podge up your little piece there. And then I didn't go all the way to the end because I'm actually going to trim this because I think this will be too long. But what you're going to do is just wrap the twine around the pencil. The tighter the better. Maybe I will do a little bit more here. If you need to do a little more, you can do a little more. And then let it dry for about 10 minutes. Don't do that. Now let me rewrap it for you. So after you do this, you're going to let it dry about 10 minutes. You don't want it to dry all the way to the pencil because you don't want your pencil to be part of your pumpkin. But after it's dried 10 minutes, then you can just slip the pencil out and let it dry the rest of the way, and your tendril will be complete. Once your tendrils have dried and you've removed the pencils, then your pumpkin is ready to go, and you can repeat the same steps and make your white one. You'll have 2 pumpkins and you can set on your mantelpiece and enjoy the fall season. So with that, happy crafting, and we will see you next time.